My wife and I have been together for 7 years, married for less than 1 year. In April 2023, a month before our marriage date, my wife was admitted to the hospital. After getting x-rays done on her chest following bronchitis, we found out that she had a collapsed lung. Nearly a year later, 2 weeks ago, my wife had surgery to confirm a diagnosis. She has an extremely rare cystic lung disease called LAM. The disease has a lot of unknowns. The doctor explained it's similar to a very, very slow cancer that will degrade the lungs over time. We're talking major issues in her 50s-70s. Lifespan averages around 60. No cure. There's medicine to help control the cysts, but the medicine also hurts her kidneys. This won't start until later in life, when the cysts get worse. My wife is my best friend. She means the world to me. When the doctors went over the scans with us in 2023 and suggested it could be LAM, I will forever remember that as the worst day of my life. Before we were married, we wanted to have children. She felt more strongly about this than I did. But I believe I would have been excited and ready after we got married. I was just terrified of bringing a child into the world and ensuring it has a really good life and that I could financially provide for anything they wanted, including college. I was robbed of this natural progression when everything flipped upside down after LAM. I was never able to tell her how much I wanted to be a dad, have a family, etc. Those feelings never came after this diagnosis. I truly think they would have. Without this situation, I had internal moments after proposing, but never got to express all of them to her. LAM is tied to female hormones. Research doesn't understand how or why. Pregnancy advice from some of the best LAM specialists around the country is weak. They say you can have children, and the risks now are limited to a collapsed lung. But they have no idea how the cysts on the lungs could progress or develop during or after pregnancy when hormonal levels are drastically changing in the body. They are writing a research piece on my wife as she's been diagnosed very early, and her lung function is in a best-case scenario compared to other LAM patients. I view this information as a miracle. My wife is given a good chance that other LAM patients don't have, and I want to preserve her health, her lungs, and her well-being as much as possible, top priority in life. Having children could flip this scenario and progress the cysts, increase the growth and size of the cysts. Nobody will know now or forever if pregnancy resulted in any of this. We would be speculating. She views this as an opportunity to have children since she's very healthy for someone with LAM. My wife is now having immense maternal and hormonal feelings to have children. She now views me as an unsuitable partner and someone that doesn't share the same view as her on children. She even suggested divorce. She feels silly, like she should have seen this when we were dating. I was always neutral to children, leaning towards having a family. I couldn't live with myself knowing that a child could mean that we shortened her lifespan or worsened her condition for the future. We communicate well, and I told her that I wanted to be a father before this. But right now, I only feel protection for her life, and that comes before having a child. She even thinks I'm using LAM as an excuse here. We're now stuck with our views and depressed nonstop. I'm willing to bend more than her, but I keep thinking of losing her and how wrecked I'll be. I would be in a terrible position to be a single father if I did lose her earlier in life. I would be so devastated, I don't think I could be half capable of being a father if it came to that. Then my logical mind comes out and knows the medical bills will pile up, and how could I possibly provide for my child's life and college with all of this? I need to own a business to fund this, and that's long hours, hard work, while I should be enjoying every second of my wife's life. I want her to be able to retire in her 40s and live a normal life that other people get, that she doesn't have the luxury of. That all seems nearly impossible with a child. Life will be harder for us. Making it even harder with a child feels irresponsible to me. I've communicated all of this for your information. She despises being held back by LAM. She wants to experience motherhood. She also wants to leave me with a child in this life after she's gone. How do we proceed? My wife has a rare medical condition that is shortening her life, 50 to 60s, and is heavily correlated to female hormones. She wants a child, no adoption surrogate. I want her alive for as long as possible. Pregnancy could risk this. It's unknown. We're stuck. How do we move forward? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You two need to see a counselor. Life isn't over. Don't start living like life's over now. Take me, for example. I'm 51 years old. I was born 2 months early with a rare, severe skin disease, and my parents were told to go home, and the hospital would call them when I died. I didn't die. Then they were told that I'd die in infancy. I didn't. Then they were told that I'd likely never be able to go to school. Blah, blah, blah. You name it. I wasn't supposed to do it. I went to public school. I participated in extracurriculars. I went to college. I learned multiple languages. I dated. I started a career. I got married. I did all the things. I did have to stop working and go on disability, but oddly enough, not because of the disease I was born with. You never know what's going to happen. You yourself could get hit by a bus and ended the life of tomorrow. And in 3 years, there could be a way to treat people with LAM so that their lives aren't shortened. You just don't know. But don't make the unilateral decision to not have kids. Comment 2. How do we proceed? Since it looks like it has barely been 2 weeks since this became real to you both, I think the best thing you can do for the immediate future is to set a moratorium on major life decisions for a good stretch of time, say 3-6 months, while you process this news. Give yourselves a safe zone to mourn the life you had envisioned, and to flail around a bit as you consider the options for what your new path forward may look like. It may seem counterproductive considering you just found out you have less time than you thought, but you stand to lose a lot more time undoing the damage of actions taken because of a misunderstanding while one or both of your emotions are still raw. Now, for the update, thank you for sticking with us through this journey. Just when I thought things couldn't get more strained between us, they did. My wife, who's been my rock, did something I never saw coming. She secretly started fertility treatments. I found out when I stumbled upon the medication while looking for something else. It felt like a punch in the gut. She was ready to risk everything for a child, even if it meant going behind my back. The tension in the house was thick. We'd been through so much, and now this betrayal? I was hurt, but more than that, I was scared for her. She argued that she felt time was running out, that she needed to experience motherhood. I understood her yearning, but the thought of losing her was unbearable. We had friends who'd been through similar struggles, but nothing like this. They tried to mediate, to help us find common ground. But it was clear my wife had made up her mind. She was willing to gamble with her health, and I couldn't support that. It was a standoff, with our marriage hanging by a thread. Amidst this chaos, I got a call from my boss. I'd been working extra hours, trying to distract myself from home. He noticed my dedication and offered me a promotion. It was a glimmer of hope, a chance to secure a better future financially. But it also meant more responsibility, more time away from home. It was a double-edged sword. I took the promotion, thinking it might show my wife that I was trying to build something for us, for her. But it backfired. She saw it as me putting work before her, before our potential family. It was another blow to our already fragile relationship. Then, 2 days ago, something happened that changed everything. My wife collapsed at home. I rushed her to the hospital, my heart in my throat. The doctor said it was a reaction to the fertility drugs. A close call, but she was stable. That night, we talked like we hadn't in months. She admitted her fear of missing out on motherhood, and I admitted my fear of losing her. It was raw and painful, but it was real. We decided to see a counselor, someone who could help us navigate this impossible situation. It was a step back from the ledge, a chance to find a way through this together. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're talking, really talking, and that's a start. Thank you for reading. My boyfriend hides his kid and gambling addiction, then uses his family's money to play house abroad. So I expose his lies and watch his world crumble. So I'm 28 years old, female, in this interesting situation with this guy who is 35 years old, male, I've been talking to for about 9 months now. Despite being from different countries, We've managed to bridge the gap effortlessly with just a 1-hour time difference. While we've had our fair share of disagreements, we've always managed to work through them like mature adults. Honestly, this feels like my first truly healthy relationship, and I couldn't be happier about it. He comes from a family that's invested in sports, especially football. Football was his thing until a head injury forced him to retire. He's really open about his past, his culture, and his family, which I appreciate. Our conversations are some of the best I've ever had with a guy. We just click. But here's the thing, he's super private about his family, and while he shares a bunch of stories with them, he won't share any pictures of them online. His family runs a big dairy business and prefers to keep a low profile, and I totally respect that. He's not big on social media either. I may have done a bit of snooping, and only has Snapchat where we met and became our primary mode of communication. Don't get me wrong, he still has YouTube and is surrounded by peers that would keep him updated with trends, memes, etc. Fast forward to a few months ago when his best friend paid him a visit. My significant other is currently living outside his home country, and he started sharing pictures of them together in their hangouts. I saw it as a positive sign of him opening up a bit more. Then, recently, he began sharing clips and pictures of his younger brother, who's also into football. But something didn't quite add up. The photos looked kinda professional. So I did some digging, and it turns out they're of a professional footballer with the same name as his brother. I was like, okay, maybe this is really his brother. But then when I compared the information he gave me to what I found while snooping, it just didn't match up at all. Now I'm stuck in this whirlwind of a situation, and it's left me feeling quite confused. Do I bring it up? And if so, how should I approach the topic? It's turned into a bit of a real-life mystery that I hadn't anticipated. For now, I'm leaning towards giving him the benefit of the doubt. His feelings seem genuine, and I'm all about trusting my gut. But man, this is eating away at me, LOL. Any thoughts or advice would be much appreciated. Edit. We've never met in person, but we've had a lot of video calls from when he's at home, on his way to work, etc. He also mentioned wanting to visit around July, but we had an argument that made him question whether he still wanted to meet me. However, we managed to work things out gradually, and now he's discussing the possibility of visiting again, though he's unsure about the timing because he's incredibly busy, and his schedule is usually full. Recently, they've started planning a camp for the summer. Their summer months start around June. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Being catfished doesn't always entail a completely fake person. The person is real, but the life he has described to you is not. This means that there is probably much more that he is hiding from you, such as a wife, kids, or a job where he tricks vulnerable women into giving him money by making them believe they are in a relationship with him. You are being catfished. Comment 2. All of this sounds like a scam. He is secretly wealthy, not active on social media, and there is no independent verification of anything he claims. He is hiding a secret family or a criminal history, or possibly both. Do not do anything that would make you vulnerable to his control, like moving or sharing finances. If he starts using love bombing and high-pressure tactics, run away as fast as you can. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, the guy I've been talking to, let's call him Mr. Mystery, had his birthday last week. He told me his family threw him a surprise party. He sent me a video of him blowing out candles, but guess what? The room was almost dark, and there was no sign of his family. I found it odd, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe they're just super private. Then, 2 days later, he drops a bomb. He says he's got a son he never mentioned before, a 5-year-old from a previous relationship. My head was spinning. Why keep a child a secret? He said he didn't want his son involved in our relationship until he was sure it was serious. I was hurt but tried to understand. The next day, I got a message from a woman claiming to be his ex. She accused me of trying to break up their family. I was shocked. Mr. Mystery had always said he was single. When I confronted him, he was furious, said she was lying and trying to manipulate us. He convinced me she was just jealous, and I believed him, or I wanted to. A week went by, and things seemed to settle down until I got an anonymous email with photos of Mr. Mystery at a family event. There he was, all smiles with the ex and their son. The date on the photos just a month ago. My heart sank. I felt like a fool. I confronted him again, and this time he admitted they were trying to work things out for their son's sake, but it wasn't going well. He begged me not to leave him, said he needed me. I was torn. Part of me wanted to run, but another part felt bad for him. And if that wasn't enough yesterday, I got a call from a man claiming to be his brother. He told me Mr. Mystery had been using their family's business money to fund his lifestyle abroad. He said their parents were devastated. I couldn't believe it. Was everything a lie? Mr. Mystery swore it was another attempt by his family to control him. He said they never approved of his choices and were trying to ruin his life. He was so convincing, and I found myself wanting to believe him, to be his ally against the world. But then, the final straw. His best friend reached out to me. He told me Mr. Mystery had a history of gambling and that he wasn't the successful businessman he claimed to be. He was living off his family's money, and the friend was worried about him. He asked me to help convince Mr. Mystery to return home and get help. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to think or who to trust. Mr. Mystery was begging me to stay with him, to trust him over everyone else. And I just couldn't leave him. Despite everything, I felt he needed me, and I couldn't abandon him when he was down. So here I am, still in this mess, hoping things will get better, but deep down, I know I'm just fooling myself. Thanks for reading. My 6-month relationship with a slob who used my toothbrush and wrecked my home ends with me kicking them out and learning to never settle for less. We have been together for 6 months, but have known about one another for 9 months before we started dating. There hasn't been a day in which he was not sick. 1. He always sniffs, uses his hand to wipe his nose. 2. He rarely washes his hands. 3. He doesn't purchase his own cleaning products like hand soap. If it runs out, he doesn't use hand soap, shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. He uses his roommate's C's. 4. He showers every day, sleeps with super wet hair, and goes out in the cold with wet hair, increasing his chances of getting scalp infections. He had really bad itches at some point. 5. He doesn't wash his bedding unless I literally go in when he's not there and wash them myself. 6. He leaves his clothes wet in the washer, hot in the dryer, making them a little bit smelly and wet. 7. He doesn't use a good detergent and never uses dryer sheets, making his clothes smell weird. 8. He literally smells after showering because his towel smells dirty and literally musty. It smells rotten. 9. He uses his roommate's slippers, table, hangers, everything. 10. He recently lost his toothbrush and is now using mouthwash and does not want to buy a toothbrush. This happened before, and I went and bought a Colgate toothbrush for 0.99 cents. They're inexpensive. 11. His bed smells like feet, because I assume he reuses socks, and never washes his feet. I think all this makes him sick, and I've never seen him not sick sniffing. Money is not an issue. His dad works in Dubai. I got him new bed sheets, body wash, new clothing, taught him how to do his hair, scolded him about using his roommate's stuff, purchasing his own things, doing laundry more often, showering and drying hair, putting tissues everywhere, so he uses them instead of his hand. But nothing seems to be working. I can see effort, but it's not enough. I understand he may not have been taught any of this at a young age and is very busy. He is a math major, but he doesn't even manage his time and wastes all his days on his phone. Then he gets mad when I mention him hanging out with his friends at 3 a.m., telling me he never does hang out with his friends. I'm also a busy college student who tends to get messy, but I always get the job done. I always make sure to try to stay organized and have a to-do list. Don't get me wrong, he is a very sweet guy, does everything for me, pays for everything, never raises his voice at me, prioritizes me. But hygiene is very important to me. I gave him an ultimatum, but I don't see full progress at all. I was nice to him, mean to him, and called him dirty and nasty, but nothing seems to change. It'll be hard for me to break up with him because he ticks all the boxes except for hygiene. I don't know what to do anymore. Any advice? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Girl, why are you staying with him? You say he ticks all the boxes except for hygiene. But if this is an important one, forget the rest. Then he is simply no good. Dump him while you can, and get a man who can adult properly. Comment 2. This is extremely disgusting, dude. It's not your job to teach him to be a functioning adult. How can you bear getting physically intimate with such a stinky, gross man? You. Dump him as soon as possible. You deserve better. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around. Well, things went from bad to worse. So, remember how I was at my wit's end with his hygiene habits? Turns out, his roommate had enough too. One day I went over and found his stuff thrown all over the hallway. His roommate had kicked him out for using his things one too many times. You'd think that would have been a wake-up call, right? Nope. He moved in with me temporarily, and that's when the real chaos started. My place, which I kept immaculate, turned into a disaster zone. Wet towels on the floor, that musty smell taking over my once fresh-smelling apartment. I was losing it, but I thought, okay, maybe this is my chance to change him. Then, one evening, I came home early from class to find him using my toothbrush. My toothbrush. That was the last straw. I confronted him and we had a huge fight. He accused me of being too controlling and stormed out, leaving me fuming and his wet towel on my bed. But here's where it gets really crazy. The next day, he shows up with flowers, apologizing, saying he'll change. I was skeptical, but I wanted to believe him. So we made up. That night, we went out to celebrate, and guess who we run into? His ex. She was all over him, and he didn't push her away. I was fuming again. When I confronted him, he said she was just a friend. But I saw the way they looked at each other. I couldn't take it anymore. I told him it was over for good this time. He begged, promised he'd do better, but I was done. I packed his things and sent him on his way. It was tough, but I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The aftermath was a mix of relief and loneliness. I missed him, sure, but my apartment was clean, my toothbrush was my own, and I could finally breathe easy. I learned a lot about what I'm willing to put up with and what I'm not. And hygiene, non-negotiable. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.